I'm not gonna bury the lead here. I believe that Secret of the Mimic solves specifically the grave order from the Princess Quest ending of Help Wanted 2. For those of you unfamiliar, in Help Wanted 2, you can play Princess Quest 4 and you can light the graves in the graveyard in a specific order in order to unlock a Bonnie mask. And when you unlock the Bonnie mask, it gives you the achievement, Remember Jeremy. This is pretty reminiscent of how we get the Vanny mask in the first Help Wanted. You accomplish secret in a minigame, you get a mask. That's basically where the similarities end. I don't think that there is any one-to-one comparisons we can take away there, right? So why do I think that Secret of the Mimic solves this when they are on two completely opposite ends of the timeline? First, let's talk about the commonly accepted interpretations of the graves. So the specific order is Chica, Foxy, Freddy, Bonnie, Golden Freddy, and the puppet. The order of the first 5 characters matches up with a pretty commonly accepted death order of the MCI. Everyone kind of just assumes that Golden Freddy is the 5th MCI kid. The one that died the most violently or in the most unique way from the group, and that would sort of be the reason for Cassidy, the Golden Freddy spirit and the 5th victim of the MCI, to be vengeful. Assuming that Cassidy is the vengeful spirit, which she is. I will make an entire video on the vengeful spirit and Cassidy and Andrew.
Andrew is the vengeful spirit, yeah. Are you an alligator?
And the other fringe theories for who a vengeful spirit, the one you should not have killed, is, but let's not get it twisted, it is Cassidy. But what is weird and what raised eyebrows about that death order is that the last character is the puppet, when for all intents and purposes the puppet should be before the MCI.
I could make myself sleep, but not yet. Not until I undo what he has done and heal this wound. A wound first inflicted on me, but then one that I let bleed out to cause all of this.
In the Silver Eyes trilogy, Charlie dies in 1982, and then the graphic novel retcons that to 1983. And then we just, as a fandom, sort of decided, oh, the graphic novel's the correct interpretation, and she does die in 1983, the same year as the Bite of 83, where the Bite victim dies.
Was that the...
But this grave order challenges that a little bit, and there have been a couple of interpretations that I have seen on what this might mean. I think the 3 most commonly accepted interpretations are: this is the order the spirits are released in, this is the death order in reverse, and this just is the death order and we've been wrong the entire time. So first, let's tackle the idea that this is the order the spirits are released in. It makes sense for the MCI to be released before the Golden Freddy spirit if the Golden Freddy spirit, Cassidy, is running Ultimate Custom Night potentially for eternity, but probably at least up to a point. But I like to believe it's for eternity, especially now that all of the books are in question as a result of Secret of the Mimic. Again, I'll get into that in another video. But then, why is Charlie the last spirit? For all intents and purposes, Happiest Day should be depicting Charlie passing on alongside the MCI. Well, some people point to Charlie's voice lines in Ultimate Custom Night as proof that she has not passed on yet. She references that William needs to stay out of her way.
I don't hate you, But you need to stay out of my way.
What exactly she's doing, we don't know. It's probably FNaF World, let's be honest. It's probably Five Nights at Freddy's World. This idea that she does not pass on until later, I feel like could have had more credence if we were still operating under the idea that it is possible that the Stitch line, or the idea that the Stitch line epilogues and all of its connected Fazbear Frights stories are in continuity with the games, which always has had problems that people brush over, but now that Tales from the Pizzaplex is much less likely to happen within the game's timeline, in fact I would argue impossible for it to be one-to-one, that kind of does put a hamper on Stitch line games, because a big argument for why people believed Stitch line games is because of the story frailty in Tales from the Pizzaplex, in which people argued that the pendant shared mechanics of Eleanor's pendant from Fazbear Frights. So if this is implying that Fazbear Frights and Tales from the Pizzaplex are in the same continuity, and at the time it seemed like Tales from the Pizzaplex was going to be in the same continuity as the games, we don't have to worry about any of that now, because the story, the Mimic, is incompatible with the story of the video game Secret of the Mimic. All of that's to say, there is very little solid evidence that Charlie passes on after the MCI. And this is even more problematic if you are a believer that Cassidy is the receiver of Happy Estate, which I would argue is kind of impossible if she is the one perpetrating Ultimate Custom Night. But for those of you who argue that the Happy Estate receiver could not be Crying Child because the Crying Child did not exist at the time of FNaF 3, I don't think most of this story existed at the time of FNaF 3. And yeah, we still know that Michael's in Afton. In fact, I think at the time of FNaF 4, Michael wasn't even in Afton. He was probably still a Schmidt. I think the Aftons were originally the Schmidts. And the name Afton didn't get invented until the Silver Eyes trilogy. The idea that Charlie passes on after the MCI is not necessarily problematic. I just don't see a lot of compelling evidence for it. Yes, I know the mask falls down slower, but that's also probably just an animation thing. But then again, this is the franchise where we count buttons and toes as the basis of theories. All of that to say, I don't think the puppet passes on after the MCI. Especially because FNaF World, what Charlie's probably involved with in UCN, occurs most likely before Happiest Day on account of we are setting it up. And there's the reverse death order theory. The theory that the actual death order would be Charlie, the victim, Jeremy, Gabriel, Fritz for Foxy, Susie, or Cassidy is actually the first and not the fifth of the MCI. I just don't buy that. If that's true, then Chica in Ultimate Custom Night saying,
I was the first. I have seen everything.
means nothing.
Nothing?
Absolutely nothing. If that line is about Susie, spoiler alert for the rest of the video, I don't think that line is about Susie. This has more credence than the order of passing on idea. Right? It's more likely. I don't think it is likely, but it is more likely. And then, potentially the most controversial of these, the idea that it is the death order and Charlie dies in 1987. I'm gonna preface this entire video with a big old disclaimer saying this is not me attacking anyone who believes in Charlie 87. This is not me beefing with Fazbear Entertainment, the YouTube channel. I don't know him, he doesn't know me. This is no hate to the theory, no hate to Fazent, no hate to anyone that believes in Charlie 1987. But I also believe the theory is very flawed and drawn. Of course, you can disagree if you really love Charlie 87, but I believe Charlie 87 runs into some problems when you dissect the FNaF 2 phone calls. Because there's sort of two variants of Charlie 87. That Charlie dies instead of the DCI, or in addition to the DCI. And if she dies in addition to the DCI, then she would need to die basically on the same night as the DCI? Or it's like the DCI is like a full week before FNaF 2, and Charlie's death is like a day before FNaF 2. The idea that I've seen floated around is that the FNaF 2 phone calls are about Charlie's death. I really don't see it. The way that Ralph talks about what's going on out there really makes it seem like it's something external to the physical building, or at least the physical, like, locked space of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Like, if this is something that happened in the parking lot, I don't think he'd say whatever's happening out there. FNaF save the map. So this is the full map. So this is the office. This is the 2 rooms up to the right of the office. There is blood under that table. If we go into FNaF 2, there's only one table, which means this table was cleaned and gotten rid of prior to Jeremy working at the FNaF 2 pizzeria. And if you need more thoughts on the DCI and what happened to them, I actually recommend FNAFology's video here. I basically share the same thoughts. I think the only part that we disagree is I actually do think the toys are possessed by the DCI and not just fragments of the MCI. I could go more in depth on that in a later video, but yeah, go check out theirs after this one. I could do a much longer video dissecting the FNaF 2 phone calls and why they are 100% about the DCI. Whether or not they should be called the DCI is irrelevant. About the DCI, the second MCI, whatever you want to call them. Editing Eric here. I forgot to mention this while recording the main video, but there is one specific phone call with Ralph that I feel very much goes against Charlie 87, and it's just the way that he talks about the puppet in the Night 2 phone call. Just have a listen.
Fox, I'll be honest, I never liked that puppet thing. It's always thinking, and it can go anywhere. I don't think the Freddy mask will fool us, so just don't forget the music box.
He's definitely talking about how he's never liked the puppet thing. It's always thinking. This does not sound like something you would say if an animatronic just got possessed like 2 days ago or yesterday. You would be more like, oh, that puppet thing is acting up. It's going places it shouldn't. I've always found it creepy, but it's been extra weird lately. You know, you would have something like that. Instead, we get, I've never liked that puppet thing. It's always thinking. Yeah, this just doesn't sound like something you would say about a newly possessed puppet. So, I don't know. I just think it's much more likely that Ralph has had experience with the puppet and that it's kind of always been like this ever since he's been working there, probably at the 83 pizzeria. Then we get into the question of, if you don't believe any of those interpretations, what do you think the Help Wanted to Grave Order is telling us? And that's when we come to Secret of the Mimic. In Secret of the Mimic, we learn about Chica's Party World. So Chica's Party World is, at least initially, created by Chica Restaurants and commissioned Murray's Costume Manor to help design the character of Chica and her initial suit. Her initial costume, the animatronic, whatever you want to call it. I think it's kind of just a suit at first, but that's besides the point. But this opens up a very interesting possibility. I don't think we know exactly if Chica predates Fredbear's Family Diner characters, or Spring Bonnie, or Fredbear, or anything. But we do know for sure that Chica predates 1983 and 1979, and at least the first public appearance of Freddy Fazbear and Bonnie the Bunny. And we see in Secret of the Mimic that Foxy originated as a puppet for David for story time. So Foxy also predates the Fazbear Entertainment characters of 1983. So that brings us to a very interesting hypothesis. If Golden Freddy exists as a character separate from Fredbear in the in-universe lore of Fazbear Entertainment and its characters, then it's very possible that the Help Wanted 2 Grave Order is actually telling us the memories of the brands that Fazbear Entertainment is made of, and it's telling us the order of the actual characters, not necessarily the animatronics or the original suits, but the public characters of Fazbear Entertainment. The Mimic is pulling from Fazbear Entertainment lore, which does sort of make sense. So, under this interpretation, Chica was the first. She had seen everything. That is a line that I have already mentioned is told to us from Ultimate Custom Night. And suddenly, with the reaffirmation that Chica's Party World was a thing that exists, makes a lot more sense. MacPad was right. He was correct in assuming that Chica predated the Fazbear Entertainment characters. So, we have Chica existing before the Fazbear Entertainment characters because she was the first and she has seen everything. We have Foxy predating Freddy and Bonnie. Freddy and Bonnie likely spinning off of Fredbear to create Freddy Fazbear, and subsequently Bonnie the Bunny spinning off of Spring Bonnie, or just Bonnie. That leads us to 1983. The bite of 83 occurs and Fredbear is retired. And Golden Freddy is created as a Fazbear Entertainment character, potentially to explain the absence of Fredbear in the brand. And then the security puppet likely was not created until after Fredbear's Family Diner closed. Now we know, because of Ticket to Fun, that Charlie most likely died at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza instead of Fredbear's Family Diner. So, if Bite Victim died before Charlie, that would mean that Golden Freddy as a character within the Fazbear Entertainment brand lore would have been introduced before the character of the puppet. And suddenly we have our grave order. Chica, Foxy, Freddy, Bonnie, Golden Freddy, and the puppet. That's the order that the characters existed, and that's the order of the Help Wanted 2 graves. So before we end, let's recap. Secret of the Mimic reaffirms to us that Chica was the first and she has seen everything in the form of Chica's Party World, owned by Chica's Restaurants, likely predating Freddy Fazbear's Pizza if it really did originally open in 1983, which is something that has been reiterated to us time and time again in the Steel Wool era. Foxy is then created as a puppet for David and would go on to be a Marie's Costume Manor character again before Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And then both of these characters would have been either leased out to Fazbear Entertainment or bought by Fazbear Entertainment when they were developing Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Freddy Fazbear likely would have been the first character created for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and because they were also spinning off Spring Bonnie, they created Bonnie the Bunny. Then we have the Bite of 83. Fredbear's Family Diner shuts down. Fredbear as a character in the animatronic is retired by Fazbear Entertainment, and to fill in the gap that Fredbear left, they rebrand Fredbear as Golden Freddy. Henry then creates the security puppet to keep Charlie safe. This is unsuccessful, of course, and the security puppet is now possessed by Charlie, now possessing purple tear marks. And the Marionette is created. So, this might even be telling us the early order of deaths, and that Bite victim is before Charlie. Scott Cawthon has always told us that he likes to use the next game to clarify details of the previous game.
There have been other times, however, when my original intentions didn't come across clearly. In those instances, I make a point to clarify in the next game.
This seems like the perfect clarification. We are explicitly told that Chica and Foxy predate the other characters, and thus Secret of the Mimic is telling us that the Help Wanted 2 grave order was never about the spirits of the children, it was always about the animatronics and the characters. Thank you so much for watching. You can like this video if you liked it and you like, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.